A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. Brought to you by
Robert Harden,
Jamie Pasquinelli,
Olivia Mills,
and Justin Taylor.
Who is Henrik Ibsen? Let's take a trip to Skien, Norway. Henrik Johan Ibsen was born on March 20th, 1828 in the small town of Skien, Norway, to Knud Ibsen and Marichen Alterberg. Ibsen wrote many plays, including A Doll's House, based on naturalism and realism. Much of his work was related to his own life's situations. For example, A Doll's House was based on the life of Laura Keeler, a good friend of Ibsen. Much that happened between Nora and Torvald happened to Laura and her husband Victor, when she took out an illegal loan in order to save her husband from tuberculosis. A Doll's House reveals Henrik Ibsen's personal views on a few important things in indirect ways. One, for example, being that Ibsen gives his views on how men and women do not understand each other. Ibsen backs up his view by stating, "There are two kinds of moral laws, two kinds of conscience, one for men and one quite different for women. They don't understand each other, but in practical life, women are judged by masculine law, as though she were not a woman but a man." Another example shows that he does not just portray this personality of the male degrading the female in one male character in the play. Furthermore, he portrays this personality in Krogstad, making that 2 out of the 3 men in this particular play. Ibsen affirms his belief in saying, it is an exclusively male society, with laws made by men and with prosecutors and judges who assess feminine conduct from a masculine standpoint. In A Doll's House, not only does he defy the social norm of women's roles in society, he also indirectly shows his personal view for women and how he somewhat defends them. He also wanted to portray realism and indirectly voice his opinion on his own life and the lives of others. After researching Ibsen's life and childhood, many authors have revealed that he has a particular view on men, and it seems to all link back to the mistakes his father made.
As quoted by George Brandes, in Ibsen's eyes, the average man is small, egotistical, and pitiful. He looks up on him, not from the purely scientific, but from the moral point of view. And in his character of moralist, he dwells far more on the badness of a man than on his blindness and foolishness. What is A Doll's House? All 3 major themes in A Doll's House are underlying meanings in Ibsen's life. Ultimately, these themes drove Ibsen into creation of this play. The 3 major themes of A Doll's House are as follows: the sacrificial role of a woman in society, parental and filial obligations, and the unreliability of appearances. Women are constantly sacrificing their needs and desires to meet those of their family. Instead, they sacrifice their happiness for the benefit of others, mainly men. Both Nora and Miss Lind make critical decisions about their parental obligations. Nora ignores her parental obligations and chooses to tend to the sick Torvald over her sick father, while Miss Lind chooses to tend to her sick mother instead of starting a family with Krogstad. Each appearance of the characters throughout the show masks his or her true intentions and personality traits. The appearances are cut too short to truly develop the characters' identities for the audience. It isn't until the near of the climax that the recognition takes place and truly reveals the characters for what they are. How does Ibsen turn this into a story?
A Doll's House tells the tale of subservient wife Nora and condescending husband Torvald's relationship.
Exposition. Nora comes home with expensive Christmas gifts, and Torvald argues that they should be saving money. Inciting incident. Miss Lind arrives to ask Nora's husband for a job. Rising action. Krogstad arrives and blackmails Nora. Krogstad delivers blackmail letter that later exposes Nora. Reversal. Krogstad agrees to take back the letter. Recognition. Nora realizes she should confess. Climax. Torvald finally reads Krogstad's letter of Nora's crimes and becomes infuriated with her. Following action, Nora realizes that she and Torvald don't know one another anymore, and he only treats her as a doll. She then decides to leave to gain independence for herself. The resolution. There was no resolution, as the ending is left for the audience to decide where Nora goes. In fact, Ibsen once argued that the audience must be trusted more than the author to provide a plausible explanation of the significance of a work of art, saying that the play does not end at the fall of the curtain in the fifth act. The truth ends at the lies beyond. The poet indicates the direction in which we may seek it. It is now up to each one of us to find his or her own way there. Here are the characters. Nora Helmer is a central character because she takes out a loan to cover Torvald's medical expenses. Torvald is pivotal because he is giving his wife guidance and is upholding his reputation by any means necessary. Krogstad is central because he is keeping his job secure by blackmailing Nora. Miss Lind is pivotal because she arrives at the Helmer's household to ask Nora for a job at the bank.
Nora Helmer is the protagonist in A Doll's House. She is married to Torvald Helmer and they have 3 children, Bob, Emmy, and Erva. She is approximately between the ages of 34 and 42. Nora lives in an upper-class family in Norway due to Torvald's high-ranked job at the bank. While Torvald is the dominant one in the house, Nora is treated like a doll. She is weak and childish. Her main objective is to keep her crimes from Torvald. Nora's obstacles in A Dollhouse include Krogstad and Torvald. Krogstad is an obstacle because he is the source of the blackmail due to the loan. Torvald is also an obstacle because he prevents her from doing what she wants and acting like a mature adult. Torvald Helmer is married to Nora Helmer. Torvald is presumably in his late 40s. He works at a bank as a newly promoted bank manager, making more than sufficient funds. He is a selfish and controlling husband whose hypocritical views cause strife in their marriage. He treats Nora as a child who needs guidance. His main objective is to maintain power in his marriage and to receive utmost respect from his society. Torvald's obstacles include Nora's free will to do what she pleases and the unpredictability of life. Nils Krogstad is the antagonist in A Doll's House. However, he is not a villain. He committed the same crime as Nora, forgery. Mrs. Lind abandoned him for a richer man, making Krogstad a victim of circumstance. He is persistent and cunning. He is also sympathetic. He grew up with Torvald, so it can be inferred that they are around the same age. Krogstad's main objective is to provide for his children. Krogstad's obstacles include Torvald's unwillingness to spoil his own reputation by keeping Krogstad employed and society branding him as a criminal. Mrs. Lind is a widower trying to find a job to support herself. Her mother passed away and her brothers no longer depend on her. She is presumably around the age of 32 to 40. She grew up with Nora. Until her husband died, she lived a pretty wealthy lifestyle. She is tough and has become very wise over the past few years. Her main objective is to obtain a job from Nora to provide for herself and to gain some stability. Mrs. Lind's obstacle is Krogstad because he stands in her way of getting a job. Period influences. A Doll's House was written during a time of revolution in Europe. Norway at this time was establishing itself as a nation and was governed by Sweden. Norway's attitudes about women were more progressive than anywhere else in the world at this time. Women were still expected to marry and run a household much like today's stay-at-home mom. The music you have been listening to was Cantique du Jeune Racine and Piano Trio in D, minor, opus number 120, written by Gabriel Fauré. Fauré was a French composer in the late 19th century to the early 20th century. These pieces were both written around the same time that Ibsen wrote A Doll's House.
Thank you for watching our presentation.